Welcome to our webinar. We will be starting in about 1 or 2 minutes. Hello everyone, and welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar on using internet-based services to cut costs, boost productivity, and deliver faster. I'm Bob Hogan, the webinar coordinator and a business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County, and I'm going to be your host today. Our presenter today is Matt Krieger, and more on Matt in just a minute, but just first some brief information on SCORE. SCORE is a national organization with over 320 chapters across the country and 11,000 volunteers. And we are part of the Federal Small Business Administration. Locally here in Fairfield County, we have over 130 volunteers with a wide range of industry, process, and subject matter expertise. And we offer 3 primary value-added services to small business owners. First of all, we offer free one-on-one counseling, face-to-face, telephone, email, or a video like Skype or FaceTime. And you can access that by requesting a mentor on the link that's on our website, or we're going to be showing you a link on the screen here in just a moment. And say if you click on that link, it'll take you to our website where you can request a mentor. We offer educational workshops and webinars like this, over 150 during the year. And thirdly, we have extensive resources on our website, which includes access to a network of subject matter experts. Our next webinar is going to be 2 weeks from today on Tuesday, September 24th at noon. The topic will be conversational marketing, how to grow your business socially using Facebook Messenger, with Greg Ruiz presenting. So you can find more specifics on our website at fairfieldcounty.score.org. We have set aside time for Q&A at the end of the presentation today. So if you have a question, please use the chat window anytime during the presentation. You can put your question in there, and it's located in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. We will end our webinar sharply at 1 p.m., and the session is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be available on our website within the next couple of days, and the website again, fairfieldcounty.score.org. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker. Matt Krieger is a technologist and an executive with experience in IT, manufacturing, and publishing. He's a vice president of tech at Kober and has held senior IT leadership positions at Time and Reader's Digest. Matt is chair of Reader's Digest Partners for Site, serves on several nonprofit advisory boards, provides CTO guidance for TeenSmart, and is a frequent business and tech presenter. Matt is also the creator of Whisper, a platform allowing consumption of web content as text-to-speech podcasts. I'll now turn it over to Matt. Matt, all yours.
Thanks so much for the intro. A couple of quick comments about the format of today's presentation. As you know from the title, the point of this presentation is to give you a sense of several services that are on the internet and how to use those services in a way that help your business run better, more efficiently, and allow you to focus on the things that you do best. The presentation does move fast by design, and there is a lot of material in the presentation which can be used as reference. And so recognizing that, we're very happy to send you the presentation. If you reach out at the end, there's an email address at the end of the presentation so you don't miss anything. So let's hop right in. So today, one of the things that the internet grants access to is what we call the as-a-service trend. You may have heard the term software as a service. Essentially that means instead of going and buying something in a box, software in a box and paying for it once, you rent services over the internet on a monthly or annual basis. Well, the internet has enabled delivery of those types of services. Particularly interesting, and really the focus of this conversation, are services that are people-based, talent, labor services that are available on the internet, on demand, where and when you want them. So one of the nice things that the internet has enabled, particularly that can help your business, is access to targeted expertise at a low price, only when you need it, without regard to where those services are being provided from. Think about this as like an eBay for talent. If anybody's ever used eBay, you can go on eBay and you can find very unique or hard-to-find things because eBay connects you with sellers anywhere in the world. Well, the internet has a number of services that do the same thing but from a talent and labor perspective, and we're going to hop into that right now. So what can you as a business achieve by taking advantage of internet services that are labor-based, that is, having things done for you by people on the internet elsewhere? Well, for one is you can be more productive. You can get work done around the clock. If you're an individual service provider, you can tap into subcontractors and individual talent that you wouldn't have otherwise had access to, because now through these online marketplaces you'll be able to reach that talent and in turn, if you like, provide it to your customers. You'll be able to get access to lower cost hires because you can shop the global market. You'll be able to get access to talent that otherwise you would have only had access to locally, and that would have come at a cost. Another big deal is one of the things the internet and marketplaces like eBay and Amazon grant you are transparent pricing and ratings so that you know what you're getting and you know the competitiveness of that. You will be able to achieve things like that as well. So again, we are focused here on how to get labor services online, and we're going to dive into that right now. So if I'm a business person, a small business person, and probably everybody on today's webinar is either a small business person or is becoming one, when you think about your business, you have to think about where you spend your time. And what you do and what you choose to do and choose not to do are very, very important for how effectively you run your business. So I would argue that anything that is not part of your core business is something that you should be doing outside. Anything that saves you money, anything that reduces your risk, anything that could get you in trouble if you do your own is a good candidate for outsourcing. And I make the contention here that most activities that a small business person does are candidates for getting done on the outside. We'll go into examples in about a minute. What shouldn't I outsource? Well, I shouldn't outsource anything that is my core value proposition. If I am a wedding planner, certainly I'm not going to outsource my wedding planning services, but I may outsource my marketing services because while I may be a wedding planner and I need to understand marketing, it's probably not my expertise. If customer service is a crucial part of your business, you probably should not outsource customer service. Anything where you need to have high touch from your business typically does not benefit, to your customers, typically does not benefit you from outsourcing. So let's give some examples of some of the types of services and the marketplaces that provide them. So if you look online at a general set of services where you can get freelance labor, two of the big services are Upwork.com and Freelancer.com. We're going to do some specific examples later, but these are marketplaces where you can get administrative support, document transcription, virtual assistance, document translation, research services, you name it. Any sort of task that you envision outsourcing, you can achieve on labor marketplaces like Upwork and Freelancer. Then there are a set of design-focused services. So 99 Designs is a classic example. I'm going to demonstrate later how I use that in a nonprofit. We needed a new logo made for our nonprofit. We wanted a professional-looking logo. We went on 99 Designs. We held a contest, and we hired a contractor who, frankly, we didn't know really where they were. But we had a nice dialogue with them. We researched. We achieved access to a great range of people and talent, and overall, we had a nice solution that we did only online. I'm going to skip down a bit. Another good example are something like a vertical, like legal services. So you can go now to a site like UpCounsel, and you can hire an attorney. These are real attorneys on a hourly basis or a retainer basis to provide you with various services. Perhaps you need terms of service for your site. Perhaps you need to incorporate. There are online options for these as well. If we skip down to the bottom of the slide, there's a very interesting and relatively new set of services available on what they call expert networks. An expert network is a relatively high-end consulting business that is meant to solve micro problems. So let's say that you are in business and you're looking to make a potential strategic acquisition in a given industry. You could contact an expert network and get a person, a business executive who has experience in that vertical, in that industry, and get access to their talent and their consulting on an hourly basis online. So those are examples of some services. As I said, this slide, along with the rest, will be published later, so I'm happy to share that. Let's talk for a minute about how the online marketplaces work, about the mechanics of them. So as I said before, think about these online marketplaces as an eBay for talent. You post a job, you enter a description, you generally set a budget, and you receive multiple bids and responses from individuals. You can check their ratings, you can chat with the person, you can have a chat dialogue, a video conference dialogue, anything that makes you comfortable for you to kind of vet whether they're appropriate for the job. You discuss the price and scope. You then subsequently award the job. Depending on the size of the job, it makes sense to have frequent updates with the freelancer to monitor their progress. You get the deliverables, you pay, you rate them, and often they rate you back. So let's hop into, I'm going to give 5 specific examples about using online services like this. This first example is a real-life example. They're all actually real-life examples, but this one comes from my experience in a nonprofit that I work for. We needed a new logo. So if you look at this screen, the logo on the upper left is the old logo. We wanted a new one. So we went to 99designs.com, and 99 Designs is an online marketplace focused on graphics and creative design. So we said, hey, we want to launch a contest for a logo design. So we chose that, and the site asked us some questions just to get a sense of our design sensitivities. So which of these do you like? What color schemes do you like? What are you partial to? We then entered in a description about the type of audience that we communicated to, the type of feeling that we wanted to convey. This organization serves blind and visually impaired people, so one of the things we described in our design requirement was we needed a logo that was high contrast. We picked different packages, so we happened to pick this gold package. This is unique to 99 Designs, but the pricing of the package directly correlates to the expertise of the designers and to how many designs you get. Many online labor marketplaces, if I'm not mistaken, 99 Designs as well, has a set of criteria for onboarding designers. So when you come on, if I'm not mistaken, the designers have to pass certain basic design tests, and then they develop reputation online by virtue of the ratings that they give. So what the 99 Designs tries to do is, if you say, I want expert designers in the gold package, they try to match you with people whose credentials correlate to that. So we selected, we wanted the gold package. And after maybe a couple days, we started seeing submissions from people. And what you're seeing on the screen here are 8 different designs that came from 6 or 7 different people. If you envision, there were actually pages and pages and pages of these designs, because we could have, I think in our thing, we had maybe 60 or 70 people competing. I'm not showing you all of those screenshots, but you picture there's a lot of people competing, and they're all sending designs. And the idea is we are looking and trying to figure out who's kind of going in the right direction. So more and more logos. We looked and looked and looked. You can see there's star ratings that I guess were given by other people. Here's a couple more. And eventually we converged around a set of designs that we liked, and it was this one. So these are, if I'm not mistaken, Slate Variations on designs that were now submitted by a particular designer. So we said we want this designer, and we're going to work with them. So let's start honing down the deliverable that we get from them. We did that. We went back and forth over, I think, the course of about a week. We said, make this a little lighter, a little more contrast, and so on. And in the end, we said, okay, we have a final design. This person has already won the contest, but we said we want a final design. Here it is. Boom. Let's go ahead and pay the fee. We gave a rating. We got our final design, and we were very happy, and we felt the spend was quite worth it, which in this case I think was about $800. So let's go on to example number 2. So this was an administrative task. We had a document that, if I'm not mistaken, it was just a scanned document. We needed it entered into a computer. It was not appropriate for character recognition. We needed somebody to type it in. It was an old paper document. So we went to Upwork and we posted a job. This is just an example page. As you would expect, you name the job, you describe the work that you want done. You let them know how many people do you want to hire. Is it a one-time project? Are there any special skills? When do I want them to start? All those things. You pick the qualification level of the person, which again correlates to how much you're going to spend. And as I said, the experience level is a function of how that person, I think, passes a series of tests when they're introduced to the website as a freelancer, and then also how they are rated. So we looked at those criteria as well. And here is the final job posting. I said it's less than 30 hours. I made a description. I said I attached a document, and I posted the job. And in this case, I think within about 20 minutes, we started to get proposals. So you can see here I got about 13 proposals, someone from the United States, someone from India, someone from Panama. As you can see, the dollars per hour really varies quite widely. I can click into any of these people and I can see their success rate in the jobs, how much they've earned so far. I can look at their reviews, and so on and so forth. We ended up hiring Kirti from India. She had a rate of $12 an hour. According to the people who received her services, they rated her at 100% success, so we hired her. I think maybe before we hired her, we looked at her previous jobs. You can see here she has a nice set of feedback and success. When the job started, we had a chat dialogue with her, a little bit of clarification, and then she went to start working on the job. Now, something very, very interesting, and most people really like this, and I found this very appealing myself. You want to know, when you're working with somebody remotely who you've never dealt with before, you want to know that everybody's being honest. So one of the things that Upwork requires the freelancers to do is to run a little piece of software on their PC that actually takes screenshots of their computer every so many minutes and shows you what they're doing. So when she was logging time, I could see this little timeline down at the bottom of the screen. So you can see from 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 9:50 p.m., and it shows screenshots of her PC. So I know that she's actually logging hours. And if I double-click on any of those, I see something that is a blown-up view. On the left, she's looking at my document that I provided her on the right in Microsoft Word, she's starting to enter those results. So I'm getting a good comfort level here because I know that she's doing what she says that she's doing. And this is something that the freelancer has to agree to ahead of time before they accept a job. She finished. It took her about 5 hours to do the work. I think, as I said, we agreed on about $12 an hour. This was actually a real bargain from my perspective, because if you look at an example of the document in the background, there's a lot of special characters. There's formatting there. Not easy. So certainly this was cheaper than me doing it here in my office. So I think in the end we rounded her to 6 hours. We paid her $72, and we gave her a nice review. She seemed to be happy, and we had a nice high-quality document. So relatively cheap, a good experience, and I've used this similar service for document translation as well. Any administrative task you can think about is a good fit here. Let's go to a third example, research. So I have a personal website that I run. Bob mentioned it in the beginning. It's called Whisper. I needed some research done for my website. I needed somebody to go to a list of websites that I provided. I think I provided a list of 80-something websites. I needed them to visit each website, look up certain information, enter it into a spreadsheet, and save that information for me. Time-consuming task, kind of monotonous, kind of rote. I went on to Upwork. This is the second Upwork example for this. I contracted this individual. I don't remember where they are at the moment, Serbia. And I gave them instructions about exactly what I needed them to do. So I provided them with a spreadsheet. I think it had around, again, 80 website names on it. They needed to go to each website and document certain links and put them into a new site for me, which they did. So I was watching them. This is their screen. Think about a moment ago I showed you. You get a little window into what that what that freelancer is doing. I was sort of peeking in and watching as they were doing the work. I can see as time goes on, they were entering the results of the research for me. The subject of what they were doing doesn't really matter. The fact is that I can see their progression. So they were using Google Sheets here. I could see in real time they have entered now about 76 different entries. They kept going, and they were working and working and working over a few hours. Eventually now they've gotten down to 225 entries. It goes on and on and on. They're working and working 500 entries, and so on and so forth. And at the end, I think I ended up with a spreadsheet of 500 or 600 lines of stuff, which is exactly what I needed. I think it took them about 5 or 6 hours to do. It would have taken me much, much longer if I did it myself. It would have cost more had I hired somebody locally. This person in Serbia, assumingly, is getting paid a competitive rate for someone in their region. The time zone worked perfectly for both of us, and so I think it was a win-win. So this is an example of a research administrative work type project. Okay, second to last example. This was another graphic design example, but much smaller. I went to a website in this case called Fiverr, Fiverr.com. Fiverr started out as a website where you could get anything done for $5. Well, that didn't last very long, so now you can get anything done for $5 or a multiple of $5. In any case, you can go on the website. There are 1,000,001 categories of people who will do something for something, people who do graphic design, people who write blurbs, people who make videos, you name it. Fiverr tends to be on the creative side of things, but again, you can get anything done. So I went on Fiverr and I said, I need somebody to take a blurry logo for a personal project of mine, and I need them to create several high-resolution, very crisp logos for me as a result of that. So I hired somebody from here on Fiverr. I think it literally was, in my case, a $5 exercise. And I gave them this very, very blurry logo. And I said to them, not only do I need a nice high-resolution, crisp version of that logo, but I also need some varieties of it. I need the L by itself and some things I can use on print and web art. Literally within about 20 minutes later, from this junky, blurry source, I received from them a totally crisp logo, which was perfect. I then received, I gave them a blurry single image logo. I received from them a crisp final version. There's the whole package put together. I think I literally paid them $5 plus a $1 tip, and within about 45 minutes to an hour, I had exactly the logo I need. This is the kind of thing many people, if you're on the call and have graphic design skills, you may be able to do this yourself, but if you do not have graphic design skills, this can be a real bear, and so $6 to me was quite worth it. I've used Fiverr for a number of things. I've used Fiverr to make avatars of myself, pictures for online sites, caricatures, all sorts of things like that. Last example I want to give you today is legal services. So I needed for my website, I needed a privacy policy and a terms of service policy. And so I went to a website called UpCounsel. UpCounsel is a marketplace for legal services. You get connected with real attorneys who bill real hourly rates. They're not necessarily billing any cheaper than they would if they were meeting with you in person, but you are gaining access to a larger set of a broader set of talent, depending on where you are. So I indicated that I needed something in the contracts and agreements or intellectual property space. I posted a description, which I'm not going to show here, but I posted it. I got several responses. You can see this isn't about being cheap necessarily. This is about looking for talent, and it's about getting services when you want them and where you want them. So after some discussion with these individuals and getting into some deeper discussion, I discovered that this project was actually a bit out of my budget. It was going to cost $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. For me, I just decided it happened to not be worth it. But I put this example here because I wanted to show you the nature of the interface. It is just like the other services. You can see the person, you can see their reviews, their hourly rate, how many projects they've done. And assumingly these individuals have decided that they want to expand their marketplace by going on websites like this. And I think a lot of that will continue to be the case as people move forward. So those were examples. I hope that they were interesting. Let's switch and talk about pricing for a minute. Let's talk about how some of these services are built. There are 2 or 3 pricing models. With 99 Designs, the graphic design service, it was set as a fixed price contest, as you saw. I could start, I think, $2.99, $5.99, $7.99, and get a contest. If you go onto a site like UpCounsel or Upwork, you can either choose based on the person's hourly rate for a given job, or if you have a chat with them, you can decide that you want to do a fixed price contract, so either hourly or fixed price. Some of the services, like the expert networks we talked about before, they are also hourly or per engagement pricing. But there are many, many other services online today, should be no surprise to you, that are a monthly subscription fee. And we'll give examples of some of them in a little bit as well. So those are the pricing things. Some things to consider when you are looking for freelancers online to work on your work. Well, first of all, you want to have some minimal sense that there is an agreement of confidentiality or privacy. You don't know these people. One of the things that all of these services require the freelancers to do is to sign a non-disclosure agreement with the service and by extension with the hiring individuals like yourself who could use these services that provide you perhaps with a minimal sense of confidentiality and work ownership, because it's very important. You don't certainly want to work with a contractor and have your intellectual property end up with them. So those are things that the services typically take care of. You may have to think about, how do I manage someone who is remote? Do I have the language skills? Do they have the language skills? Are we in compatible time zones? Are the cultural norms compatible? Just like dealing locally with people requires good communication, dealing remotely with people is a little tougher, and you need to think about those things. Who handles project management in these cases? Well, the answer is generally you. When you're working with contractors online, they're doing tasks for you that you've assigned to them. It is your responsibility to be the glue that pulls people together. So you really need to know what you're asking for. You really need to know how to manage the requirement and how to articulate what you need. I strongly recommend that if you don't have expertise in the thing that you are asking for, then probably going direct to an online marketplace for getting that solution is not for you. I'll give you an example. I've worked with a number of clients who have wanted websites built. And in some cases, these clients have not really had a basic understanding of what it means to get a website built. So when they go to a website creator and say, I want a website built, it's not an easy conversation because they're not on the same page in terms of understanding what that requirement means. Same reason why I'm not going to be a general contractor building my own house. I don't know how to speak the language, therefore I don't think I could properly manage the exercise. So if you don't think that you can speak the language of the thing you're asking for, it's probably better that you get somebody's help locally to help you navigate that. Another important thing is, if you're not watching, it is very easily for the bills to add up. So on larger projects, one of the things I like to do is make milestones. The milestone says that the freelancer is not able to spend more or bill more than X amount of dollars by a certain amount of time until you have a checkpoint, and then give them an okay to go to the next step. You certainly don't want to wake up tomorrow and see a massive bill that you were not expecting. So that's something to think about. Another thing to think about is protecting your data when you go online. Not only do I mean protecting your data in terms of the intellectual property of that data, but this more applies actually to protecting your data when using any sort of cloud service that holds your data. So not so much online labor marketplaces, but rather examples of other services you could use online, like email services, file management services. Make sure that whoever handles your data online understands how to back up and protect your data. You may have to ask these questions. Don't assume that just because your data is in the cloud that it means it's backed up. Here's an example. I do work with another nonprofit. We use QuickBooks in the cloud. We did not assume that because our QuickBooks was hosted in the cloud that it meant the data was backed up to our satisfaction, so we had to have a specific discussion about that. Think about that in general anytime you're putting your data into the cloud. Think for a minute, switching gears a little bit here, whenever you use online services, take a minute to think about which services you're using and are they charging you money. So we're switching gears here from labor marketplaces to services like email or file backup or accounting services, things like that. When you use a free service, and free services are very tempting, many, if not all of us, probably use free services for our personal email. I don't recommend that you use free services for your business. When you use a free service, there's no contract between you and the service provider. So if you lose data, if you are attacked or have a hack or are locked out of your data, your options are very, very, very minimal. And so anything you do for your business, from email to whatever else, I recommend you pay for basic plans and get a basic level of service guarantee. Okay, moving on. So let's talk about, again, let's sort of summarize what makes sense to outsource and what doesn't. You should think about that. Think about the appropriateness of outsourcing, if it is a core business skill or capability of mine, it probably does not make sense to outsource. If it is something that requires high touch to my customers and a high quality customer service interface, I probably don't want to outsource that. I think the connection with your customers is one of the most critical things. Having a clear, not only a clearly written but clearly articulated definition of your requirements when you outsource something online to a labor marketplace is absolutely critical. This is more critical, I would even argue, than doing the same with somebody who you're working with local, because you have the gap of time, you have the gap of space, you have the gap of geography and potentially language. So when you are asking for something that is more complex than just the most trivial of things, perhaps you're online and you're working with a contractor to build you a website over several weeks, very, very important to articulate your requirements, make sure that the contractor repeats them back to you, make sure that you have a set of milestones, make sure that those milestones are understood, and that you can manage the time and scope so that the costs and the deliverable don't creep outside your expertise or your expectations. I alluded before, don't outsource things that you don't know how to manage. You have to be the project manager in these cases, and as the project manager, you need to be able to speak the lingo, because otherwise you won't really own and control your experience, and I don't think you'll have a good time. Consider the relationship is a big recommendation for people. We alluded to this before. Language, time difference, culture, these are all big things. You're going to be chatting with these freelancers either over chat provided by the websites, maybe video conference, maybe email, taking into account those culture differences and geography differences is very, very important. Before you go into any sort of outsource contract, and this certainly is not unique to online labor marketplaces, make sure you know the value of a service. Make sure you know the cost of what it takes to build a certain kind of website, what it means to get a certain kind of administrative work done. Make sure you research those costs online, talk to your peers, look at the reviews, look at completed projects so that your result is consistent with them. Make sure that that labor rate is consistent with the market they're coming from so that you're paying a fair price and the freelancer is also being paid fairly. Don't forget reviews. Either very, very important, just like on eBay. I always check reviews when I use eBay. Very important here as well. One of the things I recommend, given the emergence of websites like these labor marketplaces we discussed today, I encourage everybody to consider your own competitiveness in the face of these websites. I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs and I say to them that I think they should consider their competitiveness relative to an alternative option to them, which would be a customer of theirs going online. And one of the things I often hear from entrepreneurs is, well, I'm higher quality, I'm local, I'm better communication. All of those things may be true, but I still encourage you to actively think about your competitiveness, because if you don't, your potential customers will. Customers are always looking for, me included, the next greatest thing, the cheaper deal, high quality at a low price. So you need to be thinking about, how do I stack up against online marketplaces? I recommend that. What makes you unique? Why is your service higher value? Why should customers come to me and not look elsewhere? Because one of the things I see in business time and time and time again is that the appearance of cheap pricing is like a drug. It will suck a customer in enough for them to have a bad experience. So pricing alone can be something that can take customers away from you. Think about how to match that. Not how to match that. Think about how you want to combat that and think about that. Some of you today may be thinking about okay, I want to actually expand my business and participate on these online marketplaces. I do encourage you to think about that if it's an option for you. What are opportunities if I'm on these online marketplaces? Well, potentially I could reach geographies that I was not able to access before. Maybe they are international geographies, maybe they are in the United States, but simply geographies that are outside of my time zone that now I can access because of an online site. Think about your differentiator. Think about how your customer service is going to be impacted positively or negatively. As I said, customer service can be impacted actually negatively if you offer some services online because potentially you're putting a greater distance between you and your customers. But on the other hand, customer service can be impacted positively because now you may be able to access customers off hours in different time zones, in different geographies, giving you access to people who normally would have had to wait for an overnight cycle to hear from you. I think that wraps it up. I appreciate everybody coming today. I think we actually made it in good time, and now I think it's time for some questions.
Great, thanks, Matt. Lots of great material there, and we will have about 20 minutes or so here for questions, so lots of time for questions. As a reminder, if you have a question, please feel free to submit it in the chat box in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. We do have a few questions already, so Matt, I'll give you the first question. Is when you're considering external services, how much proprietary information do you recommend providing? Example, your email, username, password, banking information, that kind of thing. If you could maybe just talk about that in general terms about what's good to provide and what not to.
Sure. So interestingly, in terms of actually those specific examples, email, username and password, banking, I would provide exactly 0, which is the same amount of that information that I would provide to anybody locally. If you ever enter a contractual relationship with somebody, whether it is on an online service or whether it is locally, and they ask for confidential information, I would say it is highly suspect. There are times, for example, here's a case where I see it often where you're working with local computer technical support. There are cases, rare cases, where those individuals who are helping you will need username and password information. It's just unavoidable because you have to trust them in order for them to help you. But I recommend limiting the extent to which you give out that information, and if you ever have to give out that information, make sure you change those passwords immediately after the job is done. Something like banking information or other personal information, forget it. If people are asking you for confidential information, it's probably a bad sign. Given that, there are times where you will need to part with things that you consider private in order to get the job done. So, for example, I have used Upwork before for people to do administrative work on that where I needed to show them documents that were proprietary to me. I made kind of a cost-benefit analysis that said, look, there is some risk here of people seeing my proprietary information, but the risk is relatively low compared to the value that I get from doing the service, and therefore I give them that information. But one of the things I recommend, and I recommend this whether or not we're talking about an online service or working with somebody locally, if you need to provide somebody with access to your data or your files, I highly recommend setting up a shared area where you can share data with those contractors. I rarely will recommend, unless you have a very long time established and trustworthy relationship with the person, I rarely recommend giving a contractor access to your own source data, your files, your emails. Take the data that you need them to have and put it into a special place and only give them what they need. And just like any other relationship, the trust will grow over time and you can open up in terms of what you give them.
Great, thanks. Very, very helpful. Another question here from Cecile. Do you phone talk or with your external providers, or do you just do it by text?
So it all depends on the site. 99 Designs, if I'm not mistaken, has a chat interface, and they also have a built-in video conferencing interface. Upwork has chat, email messaging, and video conferencing all built into the site, which, by the way, I'm glad you asked that question, Cecile, because in order to keep everybody honest and make sure that all the policies are being adhered to, you're going to want to use the communication tools that are built into the site itself. If you ever hear a freelancer say to you, hey, let's talk outside the website, let's talk on a separate phone call, a separate video conference, I highly recommend you do not do that. A classic example is eBay and PayPal. If you don't use the official provided chat and messaging channels when you buy through eBay or through PayPal, or sell through eBay or PayPal, eBay may not stand behind you because you're working outside of their purview. So I highly recommend using the channels built into the site. They give you the best confidentiality, the best retention, and the best adherence to those services. So to answer your question, it's all of the above, but just take advantage of what the websites offer you.
Great, thanks, Matt. Great advice there. Another question here from Steve, who says, I've tried some freelance creative sites for creating ad banners. There were so many responses, it was overwhelming, almost more work than it was worth to sift through it all. It wasn't a contest. We just wanted to ID a freelance resource to help us on an as-needed basis. And so what would your thoughts be in situations like that where you get overwhelmed?
You know, it's interesting. I don't know that I have a terrific answer for that. I do think that it is a process of maturity, meaning that the process of building a relationship with somebody is the same whether it is on one of these online marketplaces or not. You start working with somebody, often you have to kind of take a chance, dip your toe in the water, take a gamble, get to know them. Maybe if you have a good experience with them, you go back to them again through the website directly and you build that relationship. The answer, though, to the question of managing and sifting through responses, the only advice that I can provide there is to make sure that you have a relatively well-established set of criteria. If you're getting more responses than you can handle, you probably could make slightly more stringent selection criteria. Maybe you want a slightly higher expertise. Maybe the dollar per hour budget needs to be adjusted slightly. Maybe the geographical location needs to be adjusted. I guess in the lowest value tasks, you're likely to have the most responses, that it can be overwhelming. But on the other hand, in the lowest value tasks, your risk is also less, so you probably won't suffer if you pick the wrong person. So no great answer for there except to try to filter as much as you can, look at reputation, sort. It's like a stack of resumes. You can get overwhelmed, but you have to have some way of sorting them and eliminating ones from the bottom of the pile.
Great, thanks. Just as a reminder, we do have lots of time for questions, so feel free to submit questions in the chat box. Our next question relates to Office 365, and do you have any comments on Office 365 as both a service and a storage vehicle?
Yeah, I use Office 365. I have many colleagues who use Office 365. It's a capable offering. It certainly is price competitive with Google G Suite. It's really a choice of whether or not you prefer to be in the Microsoft camp for the Office-type documents or in the Google camp. It offers Exchange and Outlook email. I think the cost of getting into Office 365 is as little as $3 or $4 a month per user, which gets you access, if I'm not mistaken, to the basic Office apps like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and then gets you an email account. Absolutely competent service. You can't go wrong with trying it at the low monthly cost. Figure out my advice is figure out where you and your people and your customers are most comfortable working, and then go in that direction. So in some of my environments, everybody is still heavily Microsoft Office. Therefore, I go toward Office 365. But many people also use Google G Suite. And again, the monthly costs and the commitments or the lack of commitments that are associated with some of these services make it that it is pretty trivial to switch and low risk if you have to. I'll put one proviso on that statement about how easy it is to switch, is that if you move your company email, if the name of your company is Yankee Painting and you set up joe@yankeepainting.com with Office 365, there is some technical and some administrative work there that you have to get over to make that move. So just make sure that you're doing it intentionally, and if you do have to move, you may need some tech support, but otherwise, no risks that are large I see with Office 365. It's an absolutely fine service.
Great. Another question here from Robert, who's asking, what services are best for freelance data analysts or freelance digital marketers?
I don't know. However, I would bet that if you went as a freelancer to Upwork or to freelancer.com, which we mentioned in a slide, but I didn't discuss it, I would bet you that, and you search for those types of services, I would bet you could find a niche there, because those are the two biggest general purpose labor marketplaces. So while I can't name, and by the way, there may be labor marketplaces that are specifically catered to those services. I don't know them, but I bet the two big ones would have an option.
Great. Next question: Can one have a logo contest at lower levels? Cheaper than the $7.99 package that you went through on. I don't think it was Upwork. It was one of the other sites, but.
Yes. In fact, let me go very quickly to the beginning here. I'm going to hop around. I apologize as this moves. One moment. Let me get there. Almost. Here we go. So that was 99 designs. The plans start at as little as $299. At least this was about a year ago when I did this. I think they have similar plans. So absolutely, yes. Looks like you'll get slightly lower expertise designers, and you'll get about a third of the designs. So, Steve, I hope that answers your question.
Thanks. We do have a couple more minutes left, but maybe while we're waiting now, could you maybe talk a little bit more about the software you use to monitor the freelancers, where you can look at their screen, and I think that was people would be interested in knowing more about that so that they can monitor the work that's being done.
Sure. So the good news is some of the websites actually offer that themselves. You don't have to do anything. So when it came to Upwork.com, which I think is the one that really set the standard on how to do this, as a freelancer, the freelancer will have to run a little piece of software on their computer. It's mandated by Upwork in order for them to provide the service to you. It'll take a screenshot of their system every few minutes. You'll see a timeline on the screen. You can say, show me what they did at 8 o'clock, show me what they did at 8:15, show me what they did at 8:30, and you can make sure that they're working on your work when they say they are. This is all automatic to you. You're simply on your smartphone or on the web looking at this. You don't have to do any technical setup. It's all set up by Upwork. Something important to think about is that if the freelancer either wants to do the work without showing you that progress, or if they do the work and give it to you but don't show you that progress, it's a little bit of a suspect situation there, and you should ask them. So some of the other sites may have their own mechanisms for doing that. I do have one other general tip. This can be very, very handy. If anybody today uses Google apps like their Google Docs, which is the word processor, or Google Sheets, most people who use that know that multiple people can access those documents at the same time and see live what's happening. So when one person types something, the other person will see it. one way that you can see what your freelancer is doing if they don't provide a service like Upwork is if they're able to work in a tool like Google Docs or Google Sheets, you can sign into that same sheet and see what they're doing live and in real time. So that provides a very, very effective way to keep up to date as well, assuming that the kind of work that they're doing for you, could take advantage of those tools.
Great, very helpful. Another question from Robert. Are there online freelance sites for HR-related tasks and services?
There are. I would look at, it's going to take me a minute to remember the name. There are several sites, and I apologize. I'm drawing a blank now, but there are sites that provide virtual outsourced HR departments. Nuts. I'm drawing a blank on what they are right now. But if you Google for outsourced human resources or human resources as a service, you will see a number of sites that aim to essentially provide you for a monthly fee outsourced HR. So hiring, HR rules, labor law, all of those things that an outsourced payroll, all those things that an outsourced HR department could provide. There are absolutely sites that do that. So I would Google for HR as a service. I apologize, I don't remember the name, but hopefully it'll come to me.
Another question from Cecile. Is there a way to reach or focus on one foreign country, like offering my services to only French food companies?
Yeah, in fact, many of the services I know for a fact that the two big ones, Upwork and Freelancer.com, when you post a job, you can target specific geographies only. You can say limit this to a certain country, a certain geography right in the listing, and it will not even display those services to people who are outside those geographies.
Perfect. Another question here from Steve. Is there a way to hire a go-to freelancer to be available on an as-needed but ongoing basis so that you benefit from that person's experience working on your business over time versus starting over in each project? In other words, you have a relationship with a freelancer.
Yep, absolutely. In fact, I recommend that you do that if you can. So when you work on any of these sites, whether it be Fiverr, whether it be UpCounsel for legal advice, whether it be 99 Designs, whether it be Upwork, once you have a engagement with a freelancer, you have every option to contact that freelancer again, which I encourage you to do through the site so that everybody has so that everybody's kept honest. You can go right to them through the site, build a relationship with them. I've done that multiple times when, for exactly this reason, I needed somebody to come up to speed quickly the third, fourth, fifth time, and I was able to go back to that individual through the site and not have to search again. So absolutely, and I encourage that you do that.
Great. I think that's all the time we have for questions today. And just as a reminder, this session has been recorded, and the materials will be available in a couple days on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. And as Matt mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, you can also contact Matt by email, and he'd be willing to send that presentation to you. Our next webinar is going to be 2 weeks from today, Tuesday, September 24th at noon. The topic is conversational marketing, how to grow your business socially using Facebook Messenger, with Greg Ruiz presenting. Again, SCORE offers free individual counseling, so if you want to take advantage of that service, just click on the link on the screen, or again, you can go to our website and click on Request a Mentor. We would also appreciate it if you could fill out your evaluations that have been sent as you sign off from the webinar. They really help us with future webinar offerings and topics. So on behalf of SCORE, I'd like to thank you all for attending our live webinar today, and in closing, a big thank you to Matt Krieger for presenting today, and have a nice day, everyone.